This conference will now be recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm gonna let everybody have a chance to sit down. Joe, our moderator, is to reach out to our online. So he's just got about 10 seconds that he needs to speak. So please, everyone, be very still so he can make that announcement.
Okay, for the online folks, probably your best view for the board meeting is the choice active cameras. The only camera that should be on is that of the board. So Bill Albright, if you could turn your camera off, that would be great. So online people, you got 4 choices of views. Active camera is the best for viewing the board meeting. A little later, when we do presentations, you will want to change that. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Joe. All right, we'll begin by welcoming our new property owners and any guests. Do we have any in the audience today? Nobody wants to sign up for that. Okay.
Bruce
So
Martins, would you turn your camera off, please?
Normally in a board meeting that I've been involved with before, there's always, you've got name tags out front. So I just want to introduce, for those that may or may not know, we have Gail Gunst, who's our treasurer. We have Geary Baroni, who's a board member. Myself, David Blackford, who's the vice president. Jeff Way, board member, and Liz Bowman, board member. So no new property owners or guests. I'll open the floor for any resident comments on the order of the board business for today. Now, I'll remind you, these are just comments. We're not really taking questions, but the agenda went out last week, and we want to just offer that up as a option for people to speak and address that. If there are none, we'll move on. Approval of the previous board minutes, and we are in a bit of transition with our board minutes. We currently have no secretary, so that presents a problem right off the bat. Dick has tried to implement ChatGPT, which is an online AI service that we can take the recording and it can put it into a minutes for our meetings, which would be very beneficial in light of the fact that we do not have a secretary taking notes. But with that, it's going to require some discipline on everybody's part. And what I mean by that is ChatGPT can do a very good job, but only if it's organized in the format that we choose to conduct our meeting. Here's a bad example of a ChatGPT meeting, and that would be where we have many people talking at the same time. It can't sort things out. It has to be able to compartmentalize everything so that it can take each agenda in turn as it comes up, and then it can produce a very nice, clean set of notes. So I'm just going to ask everybody to be aware of that today as we go through this meeting, and it will help tremendously in putting together a nice, organized package when we get done. So the other thing I would just like to ask everybody as we go through our meeting today, at the appropriate times, if you have something that you want to speak about, I will ask you to step over here to the lectern, state your name, so that we can have that on the record, and then speak whatever you would like to address to the group. Okay? So I'll continue with treasurer's report.
So we have no minutes for the last.
As of today, no. We're still working on it.
Okay. As the treasurer's report for the month of June, we had expenditures of $11,110.88. This included the normal utility bills, officer and committee budgeted reimbursements, along with major payments to Grow with the Flow. They mowed common areas 4 cuts a month. Glee work, that was an initial deposit for the landscaping work that Gary has worked out with them. Irrigation mechanic, they installed a new irrigation system controller with a rain sensor so that if it's raining, the irrigation system won't turn on. Legendary Lawns, they did weed and feed treatment number 2 for the common areas. Jackson Heating and Cooling, they had to replace a expansion valve in the Clubhouse HVAC system. I don't know what an expansion valve is, so maybe you do. Aquatic Control, they repaired the old fountain that came out of the North Pond so that we can retain it as a backup pump. We finished the month with balances of $872.30 in our checking account and $223,979.10 in savings, which includes $31,702.90 that's obligated in there to the financial reserve account. So far for this fiscal year, we have received 91.7% of our budgeted income and spent 17.1% of our budgeted expenses. We're doing good. I'm really satisfied with the income received already. I appreciate it. So many of people this year did pay annually, and that helps me. Okay, it really does. Only have to cut one invoice in QuickBooks out. Lot count has remained the same and the same under construction. No changes there. That's my report.
Any questions for Gail from the board?
If you want to see the detail report, it's already uploaded on the website. Go to the reports area and click on treasurer report. You got to scroll all the way down to the bottom of that thing that comes up. There's a treasurer report T, it's at the end, but it's there.
Thank you, Gail. I'd entertain a motion then to approve the treasurer's report.
Also move. I'll second.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jeff. Who made the motion to accept the treasurer's report as written? Jeff seconded. All approved?
Gary made it.
Gary, I'm sorry.
All us good looking guys look alike.
All approved? Raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Just mention the committee reports as they're next on the agenda. I have a whole list of committee reports that were sent in. They'll be attached to the meeting minutes. If there's any committee members here who have any questions about any concerns or any actions that is going on in their committees, I'll just throw that out. Any questions? If none, we'll move on. We'll move on to old business. And the first thing on the agenda with old business was the results from the July 1 meeting. As a result of the July 1 vote that was put together yesterday, we have 2 new positions on the board that are open. One will be Eugene Turpins, and the other will be Julie McCullough. In addition to these 2 positions, our Architectural Committee Chair has also resigned, so that position is open. So we will be posting those 3 positions on the bulletin board so that we can have a 30-day review for everybody who might be interested in those positions to step forward. And we would look forward to you seriously considering that, because those are very key positions. Hard for the board to maintain all of those little duties, but we certainly use the volunteers that we get here and need them desperately. Dick also mentioned that if you are interested in viewing the vote count, you should go into the HOA website where you cast your vote, and there you can find the exact results from the vote itself. I know there were a lot of questions about, well, what was the vote? But you can each search that out for yourself. Just simply go back to the website, to that location where you cast your vote, and click on that, and it will come up with the exact vote count.
David,
Yes.
it does not include the 7 paper ballots that were cast. Those are added manually later on. So that what you're seeing in there is the electronic count.
195.
195, and there's 7 absentee or 7 paper ballots.
Okay. Any questions about how to view the vote count? All good? All right, well, the next thing under old business, so this is bullet point B under old business, nominations for members to serve on the nominations committee. And Liz, do you have any updates that you can give us about where you stand with that?
Have not actively sought members for that yet.
And how
But I
many?
will be.
And you still have how many members? Well, how many do you have currently?
To be honest with you, what is on paper on the website is Barbara's name and mine.
We still need at least 2 to fill that position, help in that capacity. Okay. So we need 2 members to serve on the nominating committee. All right, the third thing under old business. Just as an announcement, we now have 4 entrance lights on Northside Drive. If you've been back there, you can see that there are lamp posts put on each side of the road to mark the entrance for both locations coming off of Northside Drive. Now, I haven't been out there at night. I haven't seen them. I don't know how much light they shed. Maybe some of you have.
Don't go out after dark either.
Kids and girls that can't drive at night. Yeah, well, for those of us like me that go to bed at 8:30, it's still light out. So, also up on Holly Tree, the sidewalk has been completed along Quary Pond. If you've not been back there to see that, looks very nice. A nice addition. Okay, so the next thing under old business is the addition of some pond signage. And Gary, can you give us an update on what's going on there?
I can. We've had some trespassers fishing, and I ran off a couple of them, and Tim Mangum ran off a couple of them. So in the last meeting, when the police officer was here, he gave me the non-emergency phone number and explained to us what to do. So then I went back to the company where the original signs were purchased, and I got a quote for 1 additional small sign. It would read report violation trespassing, Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, and the phone number. And we have 5 ponds, so there's 10 signs, but I'm only proposing that we buy 5 of these signs and mount 1 on each sign at each pond so that everyone in the community knows and they see trespassers, who to call. So the 5 small signs, the proposal is 5 signs for $98.78. What would the board like to do?
I make a motion, we purchase the sign.
I second it.
Okay? Any discussion?
It looked nice, Gary.
Thank you.
Jeff has moved that we purchase the signs, and Gail has seconded that motion. All in favor? Motion passes. Unanimous.
I'll get them ordered.
Thank you, Gary. Another question. So I've got a grandson who's going to be fishing in the ponds this week. To prevent the police from showing up, is there anything I should do in advance that would tip everybody off that he's not a trespasser?
Make sure that
Yeah.
there's an adult with them, so either you or Barbara or his parents.
Okay,
And then if anybody should question it, the response should be, we're visiting my grandfather, Mr. David Blackford, who's right over yonder.
Mary had a good idea, have them wear your name.
good idea.
Hey,
There you go.
Except you lose it in the lake, or in the pond. That'd be out.
Well, John, I'm really good at that. Just give him a piece of tape with your name.
I have a question on that.
Yes, Lois?
Depending on the age of these grandchildren, I have seen some of the grandchildren that are quite small at the pond without supervision.
Yeah.
I think grandparents need to be with children. I don't know how old your grandson is, but
He's old enough to know better, but it's not out of the scope of probability that he wouldn't himself end up in the pond, so.
supervision is necessary on grandchildren.
An adult ought to be with them, I would suggest.
Okay, good suggestion. Yes, sir.
Why do we call the sheriff, not the city police?
That's what the sheriff deputy recommended we do.
Okay, I just thought, because we're in the city limits.
Yeah, but that's what the sheriff deputy recommended we do.
Gary, did you say it goes through their dispatch system?
Goes through their, it's a non-emergency number, it goes through their system,
And they
and then
notify.
they'll send somebody out when they're available, and the officer will approach the individuals, do some questioning, take their name and information, and if they're caught second time, then the sheriff's department will arrest them for trespassing.
I would say though, Dave, that obviously they're probably gonna be fishing where you are, but if they come back to our pond, it is deep. Probably life jacket would be in order.
Yeah.
Or a rope.
Yeah,
But I know it's over the
good
adult.
point, yeah. Some of the ponds are a lot deeper than others, for sure.
Especially the Quarry Pond.
Yes,
Another thing to remember, especially if kids are down there by themselves, there are poisonous snakes around. And so it's really not safe for somebody to be down there by themselves, even at their standpoint. Because I've already, a couple of years ago, there was about 3 or 4 teenagers down at this pond. And I left the clubhouse and I went by and I said, you talked to them about being there, they were not supposed to be. Tried to tell me they had an uncle up here by so-and-so. I said, that, no. I said, I know the people, no, they're not. But then I said to them, and by the way, there's poisonous snakes that are in that pond. And I wasn't lying to them. Boy, did they ever pack up and leave. All the way, and I wasn't lying with you. So that's something to be aware of when people's children are down there, that there are some dangers with nature besides drowning. There's something about that's just my thought.
I just tell them there's bears too.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else concerning our pond signage? All right, we will move on to our pet policy, and Jeff's gonna speak to that.
I just want to remind everyone that there is a pet policy in Crossville in regarding to keeping dogs on a leash. And then especially here in the gardens, It's the responsibility of the pet owner to pick up after their dog or pet. I've had several people make comments to me that we are having problems out on Juniper, that people are going out, letting their dogs roam free. They're doing their business and the pet owners are not cleaning up after them. So I don't know, that falls into the fine category now of their whole policy mess. But I mean, it's something we need to be aware of, and let's try not to. I mean, that just makes a mess out there. Lawnmower wheels pick it up, and then it gets spread all over. And again, let's just be courteous with each other.
And just because there's not a house right there
Doesn't mean
it's free for, yeah,
a bathroom.
yeah, okay.
Because I've had pictures, videos, and stuff sent to me. So,
Nice.
you know, I have an idea who it is, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So.
Okay, anything else about pet policy? Just a reminder.
It is policy 14 amongst all of our policies.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so that completes our old business section. We will head into new business. And we've got a couple of presentations, feature presentations, I might add. Dick Green is going to give us some information, some updates about what he's doing and what kind of improvements that we can make here using technology here in the gardens.
You gotta move the mic.
Joe, you want to go ahead and kick me over?
Dick, you're now the presenter. While you're getting set up, for those of you watching online, my suggestion for watching a presentation is to change your view from active cameras to hide everyone. If you select hide everyone, the whole presentation will take up your whole screen and you can see it best. There will also be a plus and minus, so you can adjust the view for yourself. Thank you.
Couple of things. This past month in the bulletin board, we sent out 190 distributions, email distributions in the community. Wow. All of the moderation that was done by 2 volunteers, and this was a very contentious type arrangement. I want to compliment Dennis and Bruce. They did a fantastic job. They stood up. When I sort of recruited volunteers to do this, I'm not sure these guys knew what they're getting into. But they did a really great job. We also rejected 22 emails for a variety of reasons that were not allowed to be distributed. So that's a very tough job to thread the needle and make sure that people have a voice, but we don't get carried away with it. So these guys did a great job and we should thank them. And we just got done having a vote. And I mentioned this in one of the emails I sent out, but I want you to know that we could not have celebrated a better 4th of July than this particular one. Talk about being 4th of July American. We had a big argument about something, we had a vote, and we settled it. The interesting part about it, there's national statistics on participation by HOA members. There's 2 different groups that maintain statistics. For a contentious topic, the national average is somewhere between 40 and 50% participation. And that's for things that are really important to people. You have any idea what our participation rate was? 98. It was 83%. Okay, that was our participation rate here. So this, by demonstration, this is a special community. It's much different than most of the national community, other HOAs throughout the country. So there is something to be proud of that, regardless of whatever you thought about the issue. The last thing I want to tell you is we're changing the website. We've made some changes for you that you're gonna, I think you're gonna absolutely love. There are now, for your iPhone or for your Android, there's apps available for the website.
Oh, good.
We've been working on this for a year. I was one of the beta testers for the company that we hired. Unbeknownst to you guys, we've been tracking every single hit into every single time anybody looked at it, and I knew about it. So we've kept track of the ones that were popular. So I wanted to give you a live demonstration, but I got an old computer and it couldn't handle it. So I got a PowerPoint for you, and I'm going to explain it to you a little bit, and then how you get the app and what it can do for you. Some features of the app that are really nice is that once you do your initial login, you don't have to log in every time anymore. It'll remember it. Okay, so it's real easy to get to what you want to get to. Okay, so after you log in the first time, a screen that you're going to see is going to have 4 things on it. It's going to have the directory, documents, committees, and the calendar. So if you click on one of them, like you click on directory, you're gonna be able to put in some information you know about somebody, typically their first name or their last name, something like that. And when that happens, it'll do a search and it'll show them up for you. And it will do this pretty instantaneously. When that shows up, if you want to call them, you click the little button, the phone, and it will dial for them and call them right then. Okay? If you want to send them a text, you click the little envelope and it will spawn your whatever client you use for emails, and you can send them a message. Currently, we're not using the chat function. Most people have a different way of doing chats, so we have not enabled that in this community. If you click on any one of the people, you'll be able to drill down on that person, and you'll be able to see more information about them, like their address and things of that nature. And that's available on your phone. You just do it in about 2 seconds. If you click on documents, you'll be able to go in and look at documents. So I will make it a point that we will move the finances up to the top. So don't get another complaint about that. But you'll be able to. So for example, one of the things that we're doing while we're on documents that would be different, talking about the minutes. If we follow the agenda and we're recording the meeting, that means that as we follow the agenda, I have an associated timestamp. So what we'll be able to do is to compartmentalize the video by time and topic. So anytime you want to go in the future to find out what happened at a meeting, perhaps you're only interested in one particular thing, you can jump right to it and you don't have to sit through 2 hours of recording, which is not popular. We do not get a lot of hits on that. It will change when people are able to go to see what they're interested in. Once we're able to do that, we're able to do a transcript and do a synopsis of the transcript to drill it down so that there are written minutes that can go into the documents area with pointers to the movie stored up on YouTube. So that's where we're going with that, to try to meet the requirements in an efficient manner. If you click committees, you're going to see all of the committees that are present in the group. And I happen to put up IT there. When you see that there, you'll see who the current leader of that is. And if you drill down into that, you'll be able to see all of the people that are in that committee with their email address so you can contact them. and ask them a question or make a suggestion, or perhaps even volunteer. Under the calendar area, all of the stuff by date is in there. So you can go to a particular date to see what's available in the clubhouse to see what we can be used. Buzz takes care of that, keeping that up to date, I believe. So, one of the things that's caused me a bit of frustration is that each of you have responsibility to maintain your own profile. I don't maintain profiles for people. So if you have going away for the winter, you want to put a winter address in there. If you want to put in your military service, whatever you want to do, you have to do it. I can't do it. So at the very bottom of this, you'll see the thing down here. It says menu. If you click that, you'll be able to go into settings, and this is whatever you're logged in. This will go to your particular set of information, your profile. And you'll be able to fill that out. There's more to it than on this screen, but you'll be able to make sure that your stuff is current to the way it needs to be, including if you want to change your email address. Under one of the features that I'm not sure how many people understand it, but it's always been available, but now this makes it much more convenient. When you fill out your profile, you may not want to have certain things shown in general. So for example, military service. Maybe you want to put in your military service so that when we have a day in which we put the flag out for everybody, but you really don't want that to be shown to the world, but you want to make it convenient for the people that do that. In your profile, you have the ability to hide information that you want to have available. For example, one that's really important is emergency contact. You may want that in there, but you don't want to have that published, so that somebody, a board member or somebody in authority can find that in case we happen to need it for some reason. But you can hide it by going into this area here, and you select what you want to have shown and not shown. We've had a lot of interest in having a birthday calendar. Well, the problem with that is that not everybody wants to have their birthday published, but they want to have it in there. This is a mechanism for doing that. You can turn it on, turn it off at your leisure. The big difference between this is already available on the website, but the big difference is the convenience to be able to get to it. So now you'll be able to do it on your phone conveniently without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. And not everybody is a fan of computers. Can you believe that? The way you get this for your phone, it's available right now, and all you have to do, and I will send out later today or tomorrow, I'll send out a bulletin board message. You go into your
Play Store, App Store.
The Play Store, and I forget what the Apple one's called. App Store, Apple Store. You go there, and then the app that you're looking for is called HOA Start. And there's only one for each of them, and load it on your machine. The very first time you'll have to authenticate to be able to show that you're a member of the community. So if you don't know your website password, you'll have to get a new one somehow. Contact me if you get stuck. And you'll be able to put those on your phone and then use that actively whenever you want to. This is an evolving, this will change over time. In the very first slide, if you'll notice that there's lots of real estate left down here. So the tools that we're using for the website, there's a whole mess of other features. that we'll be exploring and implementing one by one, as there's interest to it. I want to close. The last thing I like is to talk to the board for a second. I would like you to consider asking us, your IT team, to put out a survey. And the survey that I'd like to have found out about is, I would like to have a policy, either change the policy or a new policy that says any modification to a fundamental document for this HOA charter, the
DCR. DCR.
the DCRs, any
Bylaw.
before that can be changed, we have to, by policy, we will submit a survey to the community about it. So what happens, that's not a binding thing for the HOA, for the HOA board, but it is a way of giving them information to consider as they do something. And that becomes part of our policy. I genuinely believe a lot of the controversy that we just went through, we have been avoided. And we have a policy similar to that in place that everybody knew about ahead of time. And I'm not even saying to do that. All I'm asking is that I have volunteers that will help us create a survey. I will take care of the mechanics of the electronic distribution, all that nonsense. All right. And then you will have information. Does the community like that idea, or do they think it's a waste of time? So that, please consider that.
That's a great suggestion.
That's all that I got. You guys have any questions for me about this guy here? Yes?
I think this is wonderful.
Me too.
I think this is the best thing that's come to the garden since I've been there.
And you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
This-
Just a question. That makes it really easy for cell phone users, but if you're sitting at home and using a desktop or a laptop, is a similar app with that amount of ease available?
Yeah, not now. If you're nerdy like me, it's really easy, but I understand that it's not quite that simple for everybody. The biggest problem is security on the computers. That's why it becomes very difficult. The phones are a little easier to do because the authentication process is more structured. On computers, it's more difficult, and there's a lot of people who would love to get into our HOA and start selling you things.
If we make changes or updates on the app, does that also update the website?
Yes, and it's actually the other way. We changed the website and it's reflected in the app.
Okay.
And will this take the place of our phone book?
Phone book is done independently by a volunteer. It's up to you whether it replaces it or not. Some people like the idea of having a map in paper, okay? And paper has a lot of advantages, okay? Particularly if it's in your car and just grab it and look at it. An address is really nice, but if you don't know where that street is, it doesn't do you a lot of good. So there's advantages to both of them. So what I anticipate is a hybrid. I don't know about the work of making the maps and maintaining it. The problem with that is that in IT work, dual databases are a no-no because it's hard to keep them in sync. I have to, Eugene and I constantly compare, good point. In this election, I worked hard using Gail's database and comparing it to my database to make sure we had all the property owners correct. I missed one. That person, we had to end up giving them a paper ballot at the last minute to make sure that they got credit for the second property that they own. So anytime you have dual databases, you always run into conflicts inadvertently. So that's why I'm not a fan of the other. But it does have advantages. And at the rate at which we build houses, that stay good for quite a while.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that app again?
HOA, sorry. HOA space START. Okay, thank you very much.
It's great.
They actually need to turn back off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, that was HOA start. And get your app on your phone. Get it loaded on.
And not, you'll let us know when it's up and running, right?
Okay.
What was the question?
And, well,
Oh, you'll just let us know when it's up and running and we can log in and do all that. You can log in right now. Right now?
Yep.
Yep.
We can do it right now.
Oh, cool, okay.
Well, wait, not right now, you can pay attention to me.
so during Dick's presentation, he suggested that we consider, struggle with the words, granting authority for him to conduct surveys. I would so make a motion that we grant Dick the ability to go forward and conduct surveys.
Have a second.
I think it has to be more structured than that.
Yeah, I think it needs to
You know,
be somewhat presented to the board as to what the survey is
Yeah.
about.
and that has to be in the policy. What I would recommend is that they draft the policy.
That's a good idea.
That's usually what the board asks somebody who submits a suggestion like that, is to provide us with a draft, and we'll go from there.
Okay, we have some very knowledgeable ex-board members that have agreed to help us with creating surveys. We'll do it as a team, come back to you with a suggestion.
Excellent.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, so that concludes our first item of new business. The second item of new business is going to be just a report on our gardens insurance presentation by Bob de Blasio.
Hi, my apologies in advance. Woody Allen once said that being locked in a room with an insurance agent was his idea of hell. Apologize in advance if that's what this ends up being. What I wanted to do, you may recall I spoke a couple of months ago and we decided to purchase a workers' comp policy. And that whole process brought up a few things that made me request this time to talk to the board. I specifically wanted to talk to the board and insurance committee chair people who might interact with vendors and contractors, but it was suggested that you just do it at an open meeting, and I'm fine with that. So I just wanted to give kind of an overview because there's been a lot of comments made about, what happens if something happens and we have an assessment. And it just kind of revealed that a lot of people don't really understand what we have in the way of insurance, even though it is, line items in it in the budget. It's there for everybody to see in terms of what it costs, but what it covers is not really readily available. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody an overview of what we have. We'll just in the interest of time, go to the next slide. I'm 47 years in the insurance business. I'm still active. After I leave here, I have to go to work today. I am a licensed insurance agent in the state of Tennessee, but I'm not our agent. I do not place our insurance. We have a local agent here in town, and then through the workers' comp, we have a new agent that we're going to start working with in Nashville. So I am not our agent. And what I do is I work with Gail to do the applications for the insurance, and then we work with the agent. We get our quotes, and then I make my recommendation to the board. The insurance renews on December 18th. So I make my recommendation to the board if there's decisions that have to be made about what we ought to do, but the decisions lie with the board. I have no authority. So what I would like to do, and what was highlighted by this recent workers' comp purchase, is I would like to liaise more with other committee people as they engage with contractors and vendors, because sometimes there's contracts involved, there's insurance we should be asking from other people, and I would like to get a little more involved in that. And I think that maybe today's meeting would be helpful to let people know some of the things they ought to be thinking of. So we have, this is very brief overview of what we have in the way of insurance. Your homeowner's policy is a combined policy. It covers your property if your house burns down. It also covers your liability, in case your dog bites the mailman. We have a similar policy. It's called the package policy on the non-personal side, and it covers this building. Covers a few other things, like there's a carport that the HOA owns. So we have insurance for the property, so if the building burns down or gets damaged, this insurance would apply to that. It also gives us general liability coverage, and that's basically slip and fall. It's a little broader than that, but if somebody gets injured on our property and sues us because it is a trip hazard, and so they sue us, this policy would cover that. So by the way, I for one am happy with the new sidewalk, because if we can eliminate known hazards, that's a good thing. So I walk over there a lot. Another thing that we have that's a little esoteric is we have hired and non-owned auto liability. So if anybody is driving their personal car on business that's related to the HOA and they're involved in an at-fault accident, and the plaintiff attorney finds out, oh, that guy's president of an HOA with really expensive homes in it. If the HOA gets sued arising out of this incident, the HOA is covered for that incident. It affords no insurance to the individual driver. Your own insurance is responsible for that. It's kind of a throw-in, but it's a very important cover.
Okay, you mean if I'm going to the post office to get mail out of the HOA post office box, and I have an accident, this could somehow possibly.
It's not going to cover you at all.
No, but
if a plaintiff attorney found out that you were the treasurer of a very prosperous HOA, deep pockets, and they sued the HOA, this would protect the HOA.
Okay.
It affords you nothing.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your own insurance. But it is an important coverage, and it's kind of a throw-in, and some people forget about it. But in my business, I see some really bad auto claims, so it's
okay.
Important.
Thank you.
And then we have a modest amount of what we call employee dishonesty or crime insurance, in case somebody on the inside is stealing money from us. And I'll talk about that again later on. A few years ago, we decided to buy an umbrella policy, and the umbrella gives us, so we have $1 million for general liability per claim and $2 million in the aggregate. So we could have a lot of little claims that add up to $2 million, and that would be covered. Or we could have a couple of big claims of $1 million each, and we have $1 million of liability with the general liability. We bought a $1 million umbrella policy that sits on top of the general liability. So we have a really bad slip and fall. We get $1 million from the first policy, package policy, then we get another $1 million available to us from the umbrella. And another thing that's important to know is when you get sued, you might lose and you owe somebody money, but all along, whether you win or lose, you had to hire a lawyer. And so both of these, the general liability policy and the umbrella liability policy, and the D&O too, which we're going to get to, they all cover defense expenses. So the cost to hire the attorney is included if you have a covered claim, and it's in addition to the limit, which is very important. So you have you preserve your $1 million for the indemnity award to the plaintiff if they won, but you still have coverage for your defense. And lawyers make a lot of money, and they can be very expensive. Then we have a directors and officers policy, which we call D&O for short, and it covers board members. It covers directors, officers, board members, committee members, volunteers, employees, if we had any. And since we're all a bunch of old people, it also covers our estates. So if there's something going on and you die, but then you get sued, your estate gets sued afterwards, this actually does cover your estate too, which I think is kind of important. And this covers a variety of things. Dick was telling me before today's meeting an example of somebody who wanted to do something in an HOA and the board wouldn't let them, but he was able to go around and prove that the board had allowed other people to do it. And so there was a suit alleging discrimination, and this policy would cover that. If we put out a bid for something and we had multiple responses, and one of the respondents was from a minority-owned company, and if we didn't pick their bid and pick somebody else, and they sued us because we didn't pick them because they were a minority-owned company, that kind of a lawsuit would be defended by this policy. So it's important to know that this is important for committee members. That important for me as an insurance guy. If I get sued because there's a sinkhole and we didn't have the right coverage or something, people had to be assessed, and I get sued for giving bad insurance advice, this would cover me. So that's important to me. Then we bought this workers' comp policy recently. This is something we've been looking for a long time since I got here, and it covers two things. Maybe we can go to the next slide, Dick. Workers' comp was invented 115 years ago to protect a person who was injured while working. Prior to workers' comp, an injured employee had to sue his employer and prove that the employer was negligent, and it was a negligence that resulted in the injury. Well, we all know it takes like forever to sue somebody, and meanwhile the guy's not working, he's disabled, he's got no money, he can't pay his rent, he can't feed his family. So that's why they invented workers' comp. So the purpose of workers' comp is, and it's different by every state, it's sometimes different by county, but the purpose of comp is to take care of the injured employee. And the comp board, they kind of don't care who ends up being responsible for the injured employee. They just want the guy taken care of. So where this kind of becomes important to us is, and Tennessee's got some wacky workers' comp laws. It is, and I've never done workers' comp in the state of Tennessee. I'm from the Northeast, and that's where most of my experience is. You don't have to buy workers' comp in Tennessee if you have fewer than 5 employees, which is like, that's kind of weird, except if you're a contractor. If you're a contractor, as long as you have 1 employee, you have to buy workers' comp. But what we've discovered as we've asked people for certificates is Tennessee also allows you, if you're a sole proprietor or the single officer of an LLC or something like that, they allow you to exempt yourself from workers' comp. And that's great. And so we ask for certificates of insurance, and we get these exemption certificates. Well, okay, well, that's acceptable, but that means that that person has opted out of the workers' comp. And we need to hold those certificates because that will absolve us of responsibility if the guy gets hurt. Well, he made the election to not cover himself. The problem is a lot of contractors go over to Lowe's in the parking lot and pick up a couple of day workers to help out with a job they might be doing that day. And the exemption certificate does not absolve them of the responsibility to ensure those day laborers that they just picked up at Lowe's. And that's something that I kind of lose sleep about. So if the guy got the exemption, but then had some day laborers, and one of those guys got hurt, the contractor is going to be subject to some fines and penalties, but he still doesn't have insurance. And we might end up being stuck because we hired that guy, got his exemption certificate, but we could end up, depending on what the labor board decides, being deemed a responsible party. So for $428 a year, we've solved that problem. You know, and back to my earlier comment, if we didn't spend $428 and then had a bad thing happen, you all would be mad at me because I didn't recommend that you buy that insurance. The other thing that it covers is something that I didn't think we could get. And people on the board have been asking me for this for years. Could we get coverage for an injury to a volunteer? And I didn't think we could get that, but I got referred through a bunch of connections I have in the insurance business. I got referred to an agent in Nashville, and all they do is HOA. All they do. And they have a product that's specifically designed for that, and it covers these two scenarios for $428 a year. And so we do have coverage for volunteers who get injured working on behalf of the HOA. So if you're tending to the garden beds and somebody breaks an ankle or something like that, this would cover that. But the only catch is, we do a really good job of memorializing who volunteered. But it was you sent the email the other day about the flagpole. We do a really good job of identifying who participated. We need to keep that up because it's to memorialize who volunteered. I know when we did the pond bags, there was a lot of people there, and it might have been difficult to capture all those names. But to the extent that we can, it would be really good for us to memorialize who our volunteers are. Because if somebody does get injured, we
becomes
have
backup
something.
material.
Yeah. So anyway, we kind of talked about this, but we do need to ask people for certificates of insurance. And I think the next slide, maybe I have a sample of one there. Well, I'll come back to the certificates, but you need to, if somebody's going to come on your property and do work, and this is applicable to all you guys as homeowners too. If you're going to have somebody on your property to work, you want to make sure they have the right insurance. Yeah. If they have people working with them, you want to make sure they have insurance, workers' comp insurance. You want to make sure they have general liability. If they're doing something that involves use of an automobile, you might want to make sure they have auto insurance. And then depending on, if we hire an outside management company, I know people have talked about that. We should make sure they have professional liability insurance for what they do. But depending on what people are doing, you need to ask for certain types of insurance. I hired a guy to put gutters on the roof of my house many decades ago. That guy's jumping up and down the roof and put a big hole in a new addition I just put on my house. But I had a certificate of insurance. I went right to his insurance company. He didn't even have to go through him. And I got my house repaired. So getting a certificate of insurance is really very important. But for the workers' comp, we need to evidence to our insurance company that we tried.
I have created a spreadsheet that lists past vendors and current vendors, and it names them, telephone, email, blah, blah, blah. But it says we have a certificate of insurance. We have workman's comp, whether they're, as you said, exempt or whatever. We got a copy of that, and we got a copy of the W-9, which is income tax stuff. Okay. Past president asked me to work that up and keep it up, and that is available if any committee chair wants that information. I've been sending it out to the board, I think, but it is available. And current vendors, I think, are highlighted in yellow. In other words, they're active, okay? And then we've got some past ones that we haven't used in 2, 3 years, but we've still got information on them. But like a certificate of insurance is usually good just for a year. So it has to be renewed. Okay? And this tells you when the renewal date is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you need to diary it based on the information. If it's somebody you're continuing to work with,
Right.
you know. And again, it's okay to hire a guy who has the exemption certificate, but if you look out the window and see he's got 3 people working with him, that's not a. Every year I give budget guidance to the board, and that's what this slide is. These are our current premiums, and this tracks pretty closely to what we have budgeted for the 25-26 period. The only item that's not in the budget, and these are the budget shows each line of business. The only thing that's not in the budget is the workers' comp. That is new. So we budget for the insurance premiums. We know what that cost is. And if you don't have any losses, you don't have any other costs. But just like your homeowners and your auto, there are deductibles involved. And so when we talk about what is your cost of insurance, it's the cost that you pay in premium, but it's also the cost of your deductibles if you have a claim. So the deductible on this building is $2,500. There is no deductible on the general liability or the umbrella liability. The D&O has it only has a deductible if the loss is an indemnified loss, which means if the board is going to indemnify the board member, then there is $1,000 deductible. And in most cases, the board is going to probably indemnify the D or the O or whoever, committee member. And then the workers' comp doesn't have a deductible. So this is what our costs are. I kind of defer to you, Gail. We had a $2,500 deductible. I'm not sure where that would come from, but that's more your area than mine.
We don't budget for it. There's sometimes as you'll see the budget. I think on the next, for this month, you'll see some things that were not budgeted. They're over and above expenditures. Stuff like that happens. And so a budget is only a guideline for the finances of the incorporation. And we are an incorporation. So are we able to budget and think about everything that we're going to spend money on in October when we're working for a budget for the next fiscal year, which starts in April? No, we're not. We're going to have some areas, some expenditures that are unbudgeted. We didn't think about them. We didn't provide for them in the budget. Yet we have funds available over the budget to take care of those things.
I just like to remind people that there is a deductible involved, because when I talk to my clients, we don't just talk about the premium, but we talk about what their expected losses are. My clients have a lot of expected losses with a lot of zeros at them. So if you go forward a couple more slides, I'm kind of like covering most of it. This is what a certificate looks like, and all it is a snapshot in time of somebody's insurance, kind of like the ID, the insurance ID card in your glove compartment. It's just, it meant that the day they issued it, you had insurance. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've paid your premium and they still have the insurance. And the certificate, it just shows that they had insurance the day that they issued the certificate. The insurance company kind of promises that they'll let you know if the insurance cancels, but we probably as an industry issue about 1 million of these every day across the whole industry. That's probably a low number. So the likelihood that the insurance company is going to really notify you if somebody canceled their insurance is probably slim and not, So And I've already really talked about the rest of the things. If you go a couple more slides further, another one. I would like to suggest to the board that now that we have a second agent that we're working with, they have some specific products for HOAs, but they don't currently have, last time I spoke to them, they don't currently have a program to cover like just the property and GL. They have a program to cover employee dishonesty and D&O and some other things. So we might have to, keep our local agent for that. But I would like to pursue some alternative quotes for the December renewal. And we also ought to, just for the sake of due diligence, we should look at higher limits for the D&O and the umbrella and the crime. And I am hoping that with this new agent who specializes in HOAs, I'm hoping that we can learn some more from them about best practices for organizations such as ours. We know ours, and some of you lived in others before, but we only know what we know. And somebody who has 125 HOA clients can maybe share with us, best practices for certain things. So I'd like to expand that relationship with this new guy that we've just met. And I'm not a lawyer. Please don't accuse me of that. But I do know insurance contracts very well. And sometimes you enter into an agreement with somebody and you agree to things that your insurance might protect you for. And sometimes you agree to things that your insurance, no way in God's green earth, is going to protect you for. And I can point those things out. Sometimes there are things we might want to ask from a contractor. So for example, we hire somebody to cut our grass, and they have employees, and they evidence that they have workers' comp. If one of the people gets injured and their workers' comp carrier felt that that person got injured because of some defect on our part, their insurance company can come after us. It's called subrogation. And so their insurance company will take care of the injured employee because they have their workers' comp. But then the insurance company comes after us, and we have to submit a claim to our general liability carrier and let the insurance companies beat the hell out of each other. But we don't want that. We want the workers' comp from the contractor to be the sole remedy. And we can ask in our contract for what's called a waiver of subrogation. You'll prove that you have workers' comp, and then you'll waive your insurance company's rights to subrogate against us. And we can do that, and it's done all the time. So I just make the offer that I hold myself out to people on the board and committee, people that are entering into contracts. If you want me to take a look at the contract, I'm happy to do that. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you how our insurance will either backstop or not backstop anything that we agree to in a contract. And there's every policy on the planet has an exclusion called contractual liability exclusion, whereas it says if you agree to assume a liability in a contract, we, the insurance company, we're not assuming that liability just because you signed a contract, unless it was already covered by the policy. And some people fall into the trap of accepting a liability in a contract, thinking their insurance is covered, and it won't. Anyways, that's it. Thank you.
What about bicycles and golf carts?
What about it?
Well, they're illegal, right, to be on public streets. And that anything to keep up public streets.
The problem with insurance is that it touches on law. For the fourth time, I'm not a lawyer, but so I don't know what would happen if you're driving your golf cart around here and something happens and somebody sues you. Your policy may or may not protect you for that. If the HOA, because I'm here really only talking about the HOA, if the HOA gets sued because we let people drive their golf carts around here, I don't know. I guess our policy would respond, but how it gets adjudicated is how it gets adjudicated. I don't know if that really helps at all, but the operator of the golf cart is going to be the primary person responsible.
I have have an issue, that I think is a real big liability for the gardens, and that is the Quarry Pond. It is, I'm told it's really deep, I don't know, but I'm told it's really deep, and it has that, volcano thing on it, or.
A waterfall.
I have seen people climbing on that. Kids, teenagers, and maybe they were even adults, I don't know, but I have seen that. I've seen pictures of it, somebody around here took pictures of that. And kids can come in from the neighborhood behind the gardens without anybody's knowledge. Over, play on that, and I think that is a huge liability, and I know it's not on any land. It's owned by the
More
HOA.
liability than mess pond.
I hope it never is owned by the HOA, because it's such a huge liability. But it's still, people assume it's owned by the HOA. If anybody's kid drowns there, or, got hurt or anything, or the rocks shifted when they were climbing out, they've already shifted on their own a few times. So, I just think it is a huge liability. I think it should be probably blasted and filled in or something. I don't know.
Remember now that we still do not own that.
I know we don't. But,
No, who's maintaining it?
yeah, we are maintaining it now. We assume.
I ain't expending any funds for it.
We were maintaining $75 a cut, and we were maintaining around the Quarry Pond.
Now, wait a minute. Keep the lawn different from the waterfall itself.
Well, if you cut the grass around it, then it makes it more inviting for people to go there and climb on it and everything. I just think, short of an electric fence, I don't know what to do about it, but I just think it is a huge liability.
Well, I agree. It's true.
Okay.
Even if it's not ours, the fact that we're maintaining it is, kind of bringing us into the picture.
Yeah.
So, but again, when somebody falls, they're not gonna know it's not owned by us, it's owned by Tim Wilson, they're not gonna know that.
Yeah.
So
I might just point out, and I hate to interrupt here, but this is an example of where if we get off topic, we're going to mess up the video. So it's a good question. We can bring it up perhaps after the meeting. That would be appropriate. But this, it's just not.
But could I just add though that there's two big headwinds we have, big challenges that we have in placing our insurance. One is the ponds. The insurance company that we're with for the general liability, I'm told, is the only one that will accept the ponds. So the ponds are a problem. If it was up to some of us, we wouldn't have the ponds, but we do have the ponds. So the ponds cost, they cost a lot of money to maintain, but they also limit us from our ability to buy insurance. The other thing that's a little bit of a headwind is on the directors and officers liability, because this development is growing. It's slowed down a little bit, but it's still growing. Underwriters don't like that. They kind of like stable communities that have been there for a while and the number is the same. And, if they ever do develop that pasture behind my house, it'll be a lot more house. And there's a lot of underwriters who don't really like HOAs that have a lot of growth going on. So those are two challenges that we have when we go out into the insurance marketplace to buy our insurance. But I can't do anything about the ponds. But if we get sued, if somebody gets injured and we get sued, even though it's on our pond, our policy will protect. Now, if we have a good attorney and we want to push it off to Tim, let's hope Tim has good insurance.
Will the ponds insured through Tim?
No, well, the ponds themselves are not insured. Our liability, and the insurance company knows we have a pond. And there was some conversation about us taking possession of, I'm not sure if it was the Quary Pond or the one down by Beneke, but I called the agent and said, well, if we add another pond, is that going to affect our premium? And she said no. So they know we have ponds. We're not insuring the pond per se, we're insuring our liability arising out of the presence of it.
Right, but who's responsible? Like, say I went in, or a kid went in and drowned. Who's gonna?
Well, the court will decide that.
So we might get stuck.
Yeah, and our insurance.
And what about Tim?
Well, we could maybe make sure the plaintiff attorney knows that there's another party they should be suing.
No,
Yeah,
You know,
there are always issues like that we don't have answers for. Did it happen? Absolutely. Can we plan for it? Well, as best we can. I mean, I think you had a $7,000 figure of insurance coverage up there on your screen. You know, do we want to pay 50,000, for example, to cover every little thing? I mean, it's always a balancing act, and we just are trying to, limit the risk as much as we can based on our history and what we think could happen without going bankrupt. So, anything else for Bob? Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate you.
Okay, Joe, turn it back.
So the next item under new business is the fence survey. And I wrote on their results. It probably shouldn't be results.
I was gonna say,
We've not actually made a survey yet, but maybe a fence survey update would be
Yes.
more appropriate. And Liz is going to fill us in with that.
It absolutely would be. Eva and Mary Jo and I have sat down and we did a lot of things around. Mary Jo's been doing a lot of research with not only the regulations that we've got as far as fences are concerned and pets and this kind of thing, but as well as the towns and what's contained in our DCRs. And so we've got a lot to consider. One thing that I do need, and I'm not sure at this point from whom I'm going to get it, I had asked for information on the website form from the architectural committee to see if they could provide us with examples of what were acceptable fences with that proposition that they had put forward. It seemed to make sense, and I don't want to counter it, but I need some examples so that we can know what we're talking about. To me, looking at measurements of fences was like, whoa. So I need pictures. I put it on the website, did not get a response. I approached Scott McCalla, and he said he didn't know to go back to Bill Whitehurst, and I still have not heard from him. So we're looking at that. We're looking at exemptions. Something that you can help us brainstorm a little bit is, we've explored a lot of things and got a lot of, we may give you various surveys in the process of putting the big survey together because we need to know and what you want. But right now we're looking at exemptions, things that are temporary. Somebody has a temporary fence in their backyard because they're living by themselves now. They've got big dogs. One of them knocked her down. She fell. So she's got this, what I call it, the puppy jail in her backyard. But can anybody think of other things that might be an exemption to the fence rule? Because none of us are getting any younger, and I was just looking to see, or if you think of anything, please pop it by me. Yeah, Bill.
Electric fences?
Electric fences? Okay. Yeah.
They also have a variation of that that works off GPS, but you don't have to dig up your yard or anything like that.
Yeah, I was looking at them. They're kind of pricey, but they're neat because you can alter it to.
You can change it the way you want.
Yeah. Because you've got, I don't know who lives across the street, but that cute mopsy dog that's across the street from me has an electric fence and it really likes it. They're running back and forth. But yeah, those are definitely a solution. So if anybody comes up with anything that you can think of that might be something that we make a temporary exemption for, just pop it by me. We've got lots of papers with lots of ideas and lots more questions. So we're still in the exploratory stages. I have my fingers crossed that maybe a year from now, we've got something that we can put into our books as a policy. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Liz. Any other comments on fencing? All right. Just the last point under new business is going to be just a reminder again, treasurer and secretary position openings. I will mention that Gail has put together a very detailed information. Basically, it's a job description.
Wow. That's intimidating.
So, and I guess I point this out because for anyone that even might be considering taking on the treasurer role, he has a very specific list of items that you would be responsible for. And he would be glad to share this with anyone who would even take a look at it and consider that.
I think we ought to do everything we can to keep them. Whatever we need, whatever we want. You've done a great job for 15 years.
Increase his pay.
I mean,
I move
Well-
to double your pay.
Double my pay, yeah, there you go.
Before the board closes, I didn't really get what's going on with these 2 seats to be filled. When is this gonna take place?
2 sheets.
The 2 empty seats.
Oh, I'm going to speak to that in just a moment.
Okay.
Before we do though, there have been people who have mentioned that they might be interested in the secretarial job. There's not any provision for it, but we were talking the other day, is there a possibility that we could split the duties? And it might be something with the treasurer as well, to divide, the job since,
You don't divide the financials.
no, not
There's no
divided.
way.
Not divided in the sense of dividing it, but having more than one person.
That's what I mean.
looking at it.
Okay, so let me pause our discussion at this point. We've concluded our old business. We've concluded our new business. Now, for the purpose of the recording, what we're going to do is I'm just going to mention here, as we've gone through our business, that our next regular board meeting is going to take place at the HOA Clubhouse on Tuesday, August the 12th at 9:30. So this will officially conclude our business portion of the meeting. Just a minute, Bob. What I'm going to say next is we'll now open the floor for general discussion. And that'll be recorded separately.
But
And
you're shutting down the meeting, so this is not gonna be recorded?
I didn't say
You
that,
just
Bob.
said it was gonna be.
I said it's all going to be recorded, yes.
Thank you.
So- Okay, so just a general format here. If you've got concerns or questions, I would ask you again to come up for our recording purposes, state your name, and you may speak now and have your floor.
Thank you. My name is Bob Rohr, 89 Gardensview Drive. I'm not sure about what they're gonna fill these 2 seats, but I think these 2 seats should probably be filled immediately, like it's been in the past. Okay, when Nancy stepped down, that seat was available. They put Julie right back on the board. We have a couple of people here today that would like to be on the board that couldn't get on the board then. And we would think that we would like that opportunity to join the board today. Thank you.
There's a process.
Yes, I know. Who else? Open forum.
This Ed Potts online. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think you said in the meeting that you were going to take names from volunteers to fill the 2 slots. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then you've
And we'll
covered
wait,
what you need to.
and
So
and we'll give it,
anyone that's interested should contact you so that you can get a good query of people, maybe more than just the people that are sitting there right now.
and I'll make that information available via the bulletin board. And I'll also mention that our nomination chair should be the person that information is referred to. And we'll wait.
One other
We'll give
comment,
it,
the
okay,
HOA mobile app works. I already signed into it.
Yes, I.
Said the mobile app works. Mobile app.
Oh, thank God.
So we will wait, give it 30 days, Bob, to let people, because people aren't aware that there's even openings on the board.
There wasn't any available when.
I'm not going to
June,
address that.
either.
I'm not going to
So
address that.
normally in the past, when somebody tried to get on the board and they decided that they weren't, they would go to the next person in line. Okay?
Vote.
I was one of the next persons in line when they put me on the board. Okay, I'd like to be considered for that spot today.
You will be considered when we bring back to our August meeting, and we'll bring those members who have stepped forward.
Now, but it didn't change then.
There's no.
Why didn't they wait 30 days?
There's not a policy, Bob.
But why didn't they?
There is a bylaws article
Why didn't
that
they
the
wait?
board follows to fill vacant positions.
Why didn't they?
And one of them is that, first of all, the goes out for names to be presented. Okay. In this situation, the order of voting doesn't count. We didn't have any votes. So it just weren't.
You just placed somebody back on the board a few weeks ago or in the last meeting.
It was the only name that had been positioned.
Without sending anybody out, without sending any notice out to anybody. So now everything changes over at this meeting?
No.
I mean, did not happen or else am I delirious? Okay, it did happen.
It did happen.
You had 3 people, okay? You chose one person out of the 3 to go back on the board that day, no notice, that's it. You have 2 seats to fill.
That's water under the bridge at this point.
Oh, so it's water, so we just turn the page.
We're going to give people opportunity to put their name in the hat, and then we'll vote on it.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
okay this time, right? Wasn't that?
Okay, this time.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sherry. The secretary position is a 3-year commitment. Is that correct?
No.
No,
No.
no, the boards are 3-year commitments, but
Okay.
secretarial job.
Uh-huh. Maybe Barbara. Okay, so
No, it's not tied to any time.
Neither is a treasure since I've been at 23 years.
And how does that work, since we are a traveling community? So how does that work if you're traveling on August 12th?
That's why I had asked if we.
Hurry back.
That's why I had asked if it was something that we could possibly have 2 or 3 people share the job.
There's a lot of unknowns at this point based on this chat GDP that we can utilize. So we're still trying to figure all of that out. And to your point, I think there's probably a lot of fewer responsibilities that the secretary may have to fill in order to make it more manageable and not become just something that has 100 different responsibilities. We're trying to stay away from that this time.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Yes.
A couple things, that are kind of going on around here that I'd just like to ask what the update is on them.
Yes.
One thing is the architectural committee, there haven't been minutes since, last year, I think. Or maybe there were, maybe in the, hold up.
Well, on our website, they only list two things in 2025.
Yeah.
Only two architectural actions.
Or requests. And
That's it.
I've seen a couple things happen around the gardens that needed architectural requests. I'm just wondering if the people ever filled one out, and I'm sure they would have, if they would have been granted it if they did. But I'm just not seeing that. I don't see any updates from the architectural committee. I know it's been, without a chairperson for a while. But it would be nice, I mean, that's something that kind of affects everybody, that one committee. We see things happening, we say, oh, I might want to do that, but we want to know if things are permitted or not permitted.
You told me about your neighbor.
No. So when we do see things from architectural committee, I would like to see an address too, like, big renovation at 125 Drive. But I would like to see an address, so they say, oh yeah, they've got permission to do that, that's fine, I might want to try that.
Scott, just to your point, Scott did turn in a summary, and he has, I believe, he listed two lots that are currently have applied for architectural work, and I assume those are in process.
Okay, because I've looked on the website and not found it, so that would be good if we could get an update of that more often than just the yearly meeting, the annual meeting. And another thing, I know Gary had a tree or two cut down, kind of behind his house and the, Chen's house, I think it is. But I don't know what was wrong with that tree. Was that diseased or something, Gary?
Which trees are you referring to? There were three dead trees that were removed.
Well, there are three even deader trees.
Right along the road right away, and that belongs to the city. And I have a call into Mr. Music a month ago, and he called me and said he'll be out sometime in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So this week I'm going to pay his office a little visit and say, hey, in addition to the road collapsing at the spillway and the three drain problems, you have these three city trees within inches of the road that are one day going to fall down. And straight across the street from Joe Moore and my house, there's three very dead ones.
Deader than a doornail.
Deader than a doornail.
Actually, 4 or 5.
And then there were two right at the edge of the ditch, pond, whatever you want to call that for the spillway, an evergreen tree and another tree that were removed. And that
send you a notice about the pavement that the city put in a couple of years ago is all crumbling at the end of our driveway. Like our driveway.
Send that to the streets chairman. I'm in charge of the grounds, grass and trees. I don't know who that is.
Actually, Eugene, decided to get rid of the streets committee, didn't he?
No, I think he was looking for a volunteer and couldn't find it.
Okay. And I want to thank, I think it was Miss Blackford who put in the ponds, the fountain in the North Pond.
Yes.
When can it get turned off?
It's a great question.
Oh.
Having some problems. I thought, well, I'll give you some background. So the pond was installed and it was turned on a couple of nights and ran just fine. But after a few nights, we began experiencing the main breaker up there began interrupting regularly, tripping. And I'm afraid what's happened is because it was tripping repeatedly, that it may have caused some problems inside the pump itself. So I've got a little more troubleshooting to do to try to figure that out. I put a new timer in it thinking that was the problem. And I got a backup breaker I'm gonna try next, and then I'm gonna have to look at the pump itself. So we're still on it.
Okay, I have one other thing. This would be for Gail. The sidewalk, the new sidewalk going up to Red Oak.
Yeah,
Who paid for that and how much was it for us?
we paid half
Which is, how much?
and Tim paid half,
How much is half?
$2,500 and some dollars.
So it was cheaper than we thought then.
Pardon?
It was cheaper than we thought.
Yeah,
I think
because we
said
split
was
it.
gonna be 10,000. Yeah.
Because we split it.
Well, 2 and 2 is 4, not 10.
Well, there was a previous electrical work also that put the lights in.
Oh.
That was electrical work. That was also added. That was another, I can't remember, between 15 and almost 2,000.
I think Tuesday, if I recall, the bill that came in the other day was close to around $6,000. It
That wasn't just for that thing.
was for the sidewalk and the electrical.
Well, and electrical.
Yeah, they got 5,000, his half was supposed to be 5,000, so his half was 5, right, and HOA paid whatever, 5.
We did.
You just said 2,500.
But I said we paid, I don't know what the figure was for the electrical and stuff. That was a separate payment. That was before, okay? So we paid that, and then I just got the invoice for the cement work, just the cement work.
Was the electrical on the proposal?
Yeah.
To put the sidewalk in?
Yes.
And I just wondered about the lights, the solar lights, how are they doing?
I'm not a light guy. You don't want to ask me. Sparky ain't here. I'll give him a call.
Does anyone see them at nighttime?
They look good.
Do they shine?
Yeah, you can't see them from the road when you're driving down, it's so far down.
Just a little dark.
And I'm assuming that there was probably right of way that had to be considered, so they couldn't, stick them right out on the road.
I'm not sure, but it's, when you're on the road, it's still hard to see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're small lights,
Yeah. That's good.
Anything else that should be brought forward? Meeting adjourned.